Welcome back to Breakdown. September 2nd, 2024. College football, JJ, week 1 is in the books. What conference won week 1? SEC or Big Ten?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I definitely think the best performance came from an SEC school.
Okay. So a school won a game. What conference, though, won week 1?
That's a good question. I don't think I could pick any other conference but the Big Ten.
Why the Big Ten?
The Big Ten was pretty successful.
Okay.
Michigan
agree.
struggled before they pulled away. Oregon struggled, but they still won by double digits over Idaho. Pretty much everybody won. Michigan State, struggled a little bit against FAU, but at the end of the day, you play to win the game, and the Big Ten did a lot of that this week.
How successful was the Big Ten?
Nearly undefeated.
17-1.
Yeah.
And that one was Minnesota losing to North Carolina. Late in the game, Minnesota missed the field goal. Field goal would have put them ahead. They would have won the game. They lost by 2.
The second missed field goal of the game.
For that guy,
Yeah. You hate to see that for the kicker.
Yeah. The Big and the SEC lost 3. They lost 3 to I think all ranked teams. They lost to
Absolutely.
They lost to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to USC.
Yeah.
And they lost to Miami.
Yeah. All of those teams looked really, really good.
The teams that won looked
Yeah.
really, really good. Okay, JJ. We mentioned the SEC. Let's start with the SEC. Let's preview week 1 with the SEC and preview it also with the Big Ten. And then we'll review. I got it backwards. We will review week 1.
Yeah.
And then we will preview week
2.
2. So week 1 in the SEC. Let's start with my team, Arkansas Razorbacks.
Okay,
they put up 70, JJ.
70 points.
70. And their defense allowed 0.
Yeah, against who?
Arkansas Pine Bluff, the
Pine Bluff.
the Golden Lions, not the regular Lions,
Not the Silver Lions.
but the Golden Lions,
Not the Bronze Lions.
The Golden Lions. So, does this mean that Arkansas is going to be in the football championship playoff this year?
They're 1-0. They're in contention. They're not out of the playoff race yet.
70 points.
And I think as long as you can say that, you got to hold on to it as long as possible.
And for all you who watched the game, you probably didn't notice, but the third and fourth quarter, they were 10 minutes each, JJ. They were not 15-minute quarters. What happened there?
Apparently Arkansas Pine Bluff had other things to do. They needed to get out of Dodge, and they agreed to expedite things.
Okay. Well, JJ, let's talk about another game. Your most significant game in the SEC.
What was my most significant
USC and LSU out in Vegas land.
Yeah, out in Vegas. 3rd year in a row, LSU under Brian Kelly lost a season opener. 5th year in a row as a program, LSU's lost a season opener.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
It's hard to do.
How impressive was USC last night?
USC was very impressive, and 2 big question marks. First, who's going to succeed the number 1 pick in the draft, Caleb Williams, the 2 years ago Heisman Trophy winner, and Miller Moss stepped into that situation and looked like he answered that question.
Okay, very
quick,
effective.
fast, and in a hurry.
Had a great game as a quarterback.
Yeah, he looked very comfortable, looked very effective. And the defense, under Alex Grinch, USC's defense had not been anything to write home to mom about. But under this new defensive coordinator, former head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, Anthony Lynn, his son, Danton Lynn, they looked great in game 1, better than I've seen them look ever under Alex Grinch in the 2 previous years.
Yeah, I would say Lincoln Riley maybe finally got himself a defense. We will see. They still got some games to play though. It's still early. JJ, let's talk about Georgia. They played Clemson. What's your take on that game?
Clemson, for a while they looked pretty good.
Okay.
It was a line of scrimmage struggle. Everybody was making tackles. Both teams were flying around. Phil Maffa was struggling to really run the ball, but after a while, it feels like Clemson's defense realizes that their offense wasn't going to show up at all, and they wilted, and Georgia pretty much pulled away.
Yeah. Georgia, were you impressed by Georgia, or were you just unimpressed by Clemson?
Yeah, that's what I would say. I felt like.
Okay.
I kind of expected that. Clemson is one of 4 programs that does not utilize the transfer portal.
Dabo.
And the other 3 programs are service academies, so they have a harder time getting people eligible and willing to commit to, what comes after playing. So that's a whole other.
Really quick though,
ballgame.
JJ, you brought it up really quick. Will Dabo Swinney be forced to either use the transfer portal or resign? Or will he be able to continue on at Clemson as long as he wants without using the transfer portal?
I mean, he is the winningest coach at that program. He has won two national championships.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't win 10 games last year for the first time in a long time, and he won 9. So it wasn't like the bottom fell out. I think if he still wins 9 games every year, 10 games every year, if he wins the ACC, he's in contention every year with Florida State and Miami. I think it'd be hard to force him out.
Okay. Okay.
I'm
just asking. Okay, Jason, let's talk about another game.
Yes.
What game you want to talk about? Who did? I'm trying to think. A&M, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame A&M. It was
and Kyle Field.
At Kyle Field, it was the former Duke Bowl.
The 4th largest stadium in college football. The former Duke Bowl, meaning what, JJ?
Last year's Duke starting quarterback and Duke's head coach went head-to-head against one another.
Okay.
Now with the head coach being at Texas A&M, succeeding his former boss, Jimbo Fisher, and the player, transferring to Notre Dame.
Texas A&M was a 3-point favorite going into that game, JJ, and they lost.
Yeah,
at home. To a higher ranked team, though.
Yeah, they did lose to a higher ranked team, but Texas Kyle Field is renowned for their home field advantage.
Loud.
EA Sports, college football, 25. It's been the first football game in a decade that came out had ranked Kyle Field as the hardest environment to play in. So you would think that it would have a little bit away, especially to a Notre Dame team that. Was starting a true freshman left tackle that had 2 injuries to their 2 best offensive linemen over this summer, and were just had no depth at that position, had no experience at that position, but they stepped right in and they played pretty well.
JJ, last game I want to talk about in the SEC for Week 1.
Okay.
Vandy and Virginia Tech.
Vanderbilt, first time in 20 years that they've won against. They've had a victory against a Power 5 opponent.
Really?
Yeah, first time in at least 20 years. It might have been 30, I can't remember, but it was definitely at least 20.
Their over and under is 2.5 this year, 2.5 games. They already got 1. How come you didn't tell me to jump on that over?
Hey, Diego Pavia. I didn't realize that they were going to be as good as that they were against, a dark horse contender for the ACC, Virginia Tech.
And Virginia Tech didn't realize that either. JJ, let's go on to the Big Ten, man.
Yeah.
We're going to review, and then we got to do some previews. Let's review Michigan State.
Michigan State at home against Florida Atlantic.
Yeah. New quarterback, new coach.
Aiden Childs, the quarterback, said take the over.
Take the over.
Well,
the over was 13.5. They didn't cover the over.
They did not cover that over.
Tell me your take on that game. Michigan State won.
Michigan State didn't win.
What was it? 16-10, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the good and what's the bad and the ugly for Michigan State fans in that game?
I think the good was they kind of found the pecking order for their running backs. Number 15 looked more explosive than.
What was his name?
It was a hyphenated last name.
Yeah,
but he had the long
from
run.
UMass.
Yeah, the transfer from UMass, formerly of Rutgers. Yeah, I think he was at Rutgers first, and then he went to UMass.
If you take out that 165-yard touchdown run by him, their running game still was anemic.
Yeah, I mean, they were averaging like 3 yards a carry. So that was the bad, obviously. The offensive line and their running game was not able to generate
What was the good?
much against the Florida Atlantic. The good was that they won the game. They're 1-0.
And I also think the good was that their quarterback, for his first start, did not look that bad.
Yeah, I mean, there were some definite bright spots. There were also some definite like signs of that. He does look like he's an 18-year-old first-time starter.
I think you give him some experience, he's gonna be trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's absolutely flashed some potential and some talent, both with his arm and with his legs. And I think his decision making wasn't. I mean, it was it wasn't. I don't know. It didn't seem like it wasn't able to be corrected. So
I don't know. I think he throws a good ball. I think his legs are pretty good.
those are tight spiral.
Yeah, but I don't know if they will get the over this year. I would say they not.
Yeah, that might be a little ambitious.
One last game to review, JJ, before we start some previews.
Okay.
And we've talked about it already, but we want to review it from a Big Ten perspective.
Okay, let's talk about it.
USC and LSU.
Okay, USC and LSU.
We've already talked a lot, so we want to talk so much about it. But from a Big Ten perspective, what did that say to teams on USC's schedule?
I mean, it put them on the radar. They might have won 8 games last year, but they're up for a different type of challenge this year. They have a different type of defense, and just because Caleb Williams is gone, that doesn't mean anything's changed. Miller Moss looked like he's someone that you have to deal with.
I agree 100%. He looked very, 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 very good.
He looked very, very well good. I agree. He was throwing the ball down the field, and USC looked like they had playmakers.
Okay.
So.
Well, week 1 is in the book, JJ. The Big Ten didn't have a competitive slate of games at the SEC. So let's move on to week 2, if you would.
Yeah, week 2.
You want to stick with the Big Ten, or you want to combine the Big Ten and the SEC all together?
Well, the biggest game in week 2 involves one Big Ten team and one SEC team.
So let's combine them together right now. And what game are we talking about?
That would obviously be the Texas Longhorns versus the Michigan Wolverines.
Obvious. What, 12 o'clock in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, I believe that will be 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
In Ann Arbor?
That's what, 10 a.m. or is it Central Time in Austin, or is that?
It's Central. It's 1 hour difference.
So that's up to 11 a.m. That's not too bad. I'm sure they're used to that then.
JJ, how often did you see Michigan Wolverine an underdog at the Big House?
It's pretty rare. They've won. How many consecutive regular season games in a row? I think they just
since Appalachian State, probably. I don't know.
No, not opening.
I'm
talking about just consecutive regular season games. They've won.
It was 12 last year because they went undefeated.
And the year before they went undefeated until TCU.
That's true.
And the year before that they went undefeated until Georgia.
They've had a lot of 36, at least 36 regular season games.
I knew they broke the record for the Big Ten in most consecutive regular season wins.
So do you think the spread is legit? Was it a 6 point?
6.5 point.
Do you think that's a legit spread?
I think that's a legit spread. I think I would take Texas, honestly, to cover.
You would give the 6.5 point and take Texas.
I would take Texas.
Coming from a U of M fan.
I mean, I like U of M, but if you watched the game last week, their offense looked a lot different. They went up against a pretty small, undersized defensive line, and they weren't able to establish their will in the run game. In the pass game, Davis Warren. What?
Go ahead. In the pass game,
Davis Warren, unexpectedly took over for J.J. McCarthy and not Alex Orji. I think he has a lower ceiling. He's not as mobile. He doesn't have a stronger arm. So I think offensively, their receivers. They don't. I think the receivers didn't really look good. I think they were built for a more mobile quarterback, and I don't think Davis Warren winning the job is good for the ceiling of the program, I guess.
Texas does not have a running game.
They do not. They did look bad running the ball. They lost two of their best, their two best running backs.
What would Michigan need to happen for them in order to win this game?
Turnovers. I mean, their defense looked really good still.
Okay.
The defense has searched their will. If they make it a nightmare day for Quinn Ewers, Michigan can absolutely win
Then
this
Orange
game.
Manning will come in. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
so you said Michigan could win, but you're going to give those 6.5 points.
yeah, I would say it's kind of like
How big a factor the home field going to be for them?
Similar to Texas A&M versus Notre Dame. I think it's gonna play a little bit of a factor, but the Big House is known for anything for it being designed over 100 years ago, and it does not.
It doesn't retain noise.
It does not retain noise. The acoustics do not. It's not like Autzen Stadium out in Oregon or any of those other type of environments.
Okay, so you're giving the points. I don't. You know what? I'm staying away from that game, JJ. Let's move on. Let's stay in the SEC though.
Okay.
But let's do really quickly. Arkansas and Oklahoma State. Arkansas at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Really quickly.
Number 17 in the country, Oklahoma State.
And Oklahoma State is an 8-point favorite. You're giving them and you're taking them. And why?
I'm taking Arkansas to cover for sure. I think Arkansas can keep it within a touchdown at least.
Okay.
I think Arkansas has a better offensive coordinator than they've had in a long time. I think he's better than Kendall Briles was, and I think he's better than Dan Enos was last year. I think I think Arkansas, from a skill position player matchup, I think if they can stop the run, if they can stop Ollie Gordon,
he's the man they need to stop. But he did not look that good in week 1.
That's true.
But he did get 100 yards. But he had like almost 30 carries. JJ, other than the Texas game in week 2, Texas Michigan, any SEC game that you want to talk about?
There's Tennessee is gonna play NC State. That's a ranked on ranked matchup.
Okay.
NC State did not look great last week, but they won their game.
It's going to be at NC State, and Tennessee is a 7.5 point favorite.
Yeah, Nico.
Let's say Nico, the quarterback of Tennessee.
The 18-year-old quarterback for Tennessee looked dynamic. He looked really good.
Is he still 18-year-old?
I believe he still is 18.
Wow. Okay.
Similar to Aiden Childs, I think he's just 18-year-old sophomore.
Okay.
But maybe he just turned 19. I'm not sure. But I think that game on paper should be pretty decent.
7.5 points.
Yeah, that's not like a huge spread, and North Carolina State is at home, so they might not want to put a lot on tape for Tennessee.
Okay.
You don't want to overreact to week 1.
Okay.
So that's probably the only other game in the SEC that's really exciting from a ranked on ranked standpoint. South Carolina plays Kentucky next year. South Carolina's won 2 in a row against Kentucky. Kentucky had won 5 in a row before that. Kentucky has the transfer quarterback from Georgia.
Surprisingly to me, Kentucky is a 10-point favorite in that game. That is a surprise. Even though
I saw them as a 9.5 point favorite, but yeah,
it might have. Last I saw was 10.
Oh well, maybe it went up. I don't know. But either way, that is a significant point spread.
I agree. I would take South Carolina in that one.
Yeah. I'd take South Carolina to cover, but I do think Kentucky wins the game.
Yeah, I think everyone does.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Big Ten.
To the Big Ten we go.
We've already reviewed the Texas-Michigan game. Mm-hmm. There's another rivalry. Not another rivalry. There's a huge rivalry being played in the Big Ten this week.
The Cyhawk.
Yes, sir.
Iowa State.
Yes, sir.
No love lost between the Battle of the Corn.
It's gonna be at Iowa. Iowa's a 2.5 point favorite.
I saw them as a 3-point favorite.
Okay. Did you see what Iowa's offense did last week?
They put up 40 points for the first time in over a year. A wide receiver had 2 touchdowns in the season, and they did that in the first game of the year. He had 2 touchdowns in one game. The entire 2023, they didn't have a wide receiver have 2 touchdowns in the entire season.
And they still won, 10 games?
Yeah.
So does Iowa, if they have an offense this year, can they win the Big Ten?
I guess you get rid of the son. Brian Ferentz is now an analyst over there at Maryland.
And you get rid of the coach. He was suspended for
the game, too. Maybe they're playing a little bit looser. Maybe they were, but
Well, Michigan did that. They tried that last year, suspending their coach for games, and they just kept on winning.
it did.
Will it
Yeah.
work? Will it work for Iowa?
Well, I don't think they have much to worry about because I think he's coming back next week against
Well,
Iowa
he's
State.
coming back, but if they lose, they might suspend him again. But no.
Well, Iowa wins this game very frequently, and I think Iowa State has a pretty talented team this year, but it's at Iowa, and Iowa I do think will.
I would give those 2.5 points, and then I would sleep very comfortable at night.
I think Iowa wins.
JJ, let's talk about Maryland. They got a home game against my alma mater,
Yeah, they do have,
Michigan State Spartans.
and they're a 10-point favorite.
And as we go down the list talking about the Big Ten, we can say everybody won last week except for Minnesota. So we know Maryland won, Michigan State won. Maryland is a 10-point. You say 10-point? I saw a 8-point favorite.
Oh, I saw 10 at MGM.
Well, let's split the difference and say they're a 9-point favorite.
Okay.
We'll just split the difference.
Okay,
whatever
let's
that
say
matters.
let's say we're done.
Michigan State underperformed that much in week 1 to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible they didn't want to put out on tape against Florida Atlantic, but I think to me it was more Maryland looked really good. Having to succeed Talia Tagovailoa. I think their backup quarterback from last year, he did not look good in the game against. Was it with Auburn? No, it couldn't have been Auburn in the bowl game.
Yeah, Auburn played in the bowl game.
Okay, maybe it was Auburn, but he did not look good at all. He was 6 for 20. He just looked terrible, and it was like night and day. He looked so much better in last week's game.
So will Michigan State cover?
The 10 or the 8?
9.
9. I think Michigan State's defense looked pretty good. The defensive line looked pretty good. No, I think Maryland's going to I'll take Maryland.
You know what? Being at this at home, I think Maryland's going to try to make a statement with their offense. I would give up those points as well. Tell you one other game that I'm interested in. Then I'm gonna get you pick a game and we can get out of here.
Okay.
Nebraska and Colorado.
Nebraska, Colorado.
It's at Nebraska.
At Nebraska. Revenge.
Nebraska's a 7.5-point favorite.
They got revenge on their mind.
Yes, they do. And they got a rookie quarterback
Who looked,
going up against a not rookie quarterback.
maybe the best quarterback in the country.
Okay. So how you see that game? 7.5.
I see Colorado keeping it within a touchdown. I see them losing by 7 points exactly, so I would take them to cover.
You know what? I know the crowd's going to be really into this game. It's going to be a huge crowd.
Yeah.
I would either take Colorado to cover, or else I would stay away. I might even take Colorado to win outright because I think they got a lot to prove as well. Because I think, it's interesting. They both need this game,
Yeah, they do.
but Nebraska might need it more. JJ, you got any team in the Big Ten you want to talk about for in the game or just team in general?
Illinois is going. Kansas, a ranked Kansas is coming to Illinois, and we're not talking about basketball. That's football. Kansas is a 5.5-point road favorite. I like their quarterback Jalen Daniels. I think he could win the Heisman Trophy if he stays healthy.
Didn't Jaden Daniels win the Heisman Trophy last year?
That's why I said Jalen, not Jaden.
Okay.
I think that game is a little interesting. Also, Oregon, Boise State. Boise State has a running back that ran for 270 yards last week against Georgia Southern. I think that should be a pretty good matchup. Even though Oregon's an 18.5-point favorite, they only won by 10 against Idaho, and I think obviously Boise State is a much better. They're the cream of the crop in that state.
Well, they're replacing their quarterback from last year. Boise State is.
They are replacing their quarterback, but
Green, because he's at Arkansas this year. JJ, you mentioned Illinois. I want to get to Illinois really quickly. Brent Bielema is his own worst enemy. I think early in the year, you got to look out for him. So I actually think Illinois will win that game against Kansas. It's at home, but that's just my take.
I have Illinois covering, but I do think Kansas walks away with a win.
Okay. I kind of think Illinois win.
Well,
Okay.
that would be nice. I mean, that'd be good for the Big Ten.
It would be.
Yeah.
It would be. Are we done?
I think we can get out of here.
Our work is finished.
Yeah.
Woo, pigs, suey, WPS.
Who they? Start coming back to a TV
Who
near you.
they play?
Who they play? The New England Patriots, week 1.
We out of here. Go